Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Wednesday, June the 13th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. And I have been very busy this afternoon and this morning doing what I've been doing the last few days, doing bookkeeping, which is not my favorite thing to do in the world. But it's good news because it just shows how much Louise's gardening business is just really flying right now. I mean, we're still trying to iron things out and get things under control from a management perspective in some ways. But boy, oh boy, I mean, things are just flying to the point where I can barely keep up with the bookkeeping. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
So, yeah.
God,
yeah.
who knows? Maybe the next thing you do, you hire a bookkeeper.
Oh, that's the plan. I had planned on it before
right.
now, but it's always a cash flow issue, right? You got to make sure you have the cash flow to cover stuff. And we're getting close to that now. We're to the point now where we can pretty much justify bringing in a bookkeeper. So, I mean, I want to do a couple things more to nail stuff down first, including what the bookkeeper has to do, because right now I'm doing some stuff kind of, flying seat of the pants as I go because our workflow of paper is not ideal yet. But that's okay. We're getting close. We're getting real close. So it's all good, as you like to say.
It is all good. Always, all the time.
All the time. And I promised you I would give you an update about the book signing last night. And that was a lot of fun. It was really good. When I got there, now you have to understand the Buttonwood it's kind of the equivalent of like a two-room shop. I mean, that's really all it is. It's like a retail space, kind of. It's got two rooms. One room is sort of their office/bookstore. Or I think it's actually like a lending library more than a bookstore, although I'm not 100% sure about that. And then the other room is the main meeting room, and it's like I don't know, 15 by 20 room. It's not a real big room, maybe 20 by 24, but it's not a real big room at all. And it's got that Steinway in there that she wrote about in the book. So, you can get comfortably probably 20 or 30 people in there. And when I arrived just a few minutes before the starting time, and the only person there was Anne-Marie. So I said, oh, well, this is going to be a relatively easy night. Not a whole lot going on. But I was premature in that judgment because, as it turned out, we had about 10 people who showed up. And we kind of did like a circle of chairs kind of thing so we could have a rather intimate conversation. It was great. I mean, the people who showed up were people who already, for the most part, with one exception maybe, already knew about the law of attraction, had some level of expertise with it. One of them was a good friend of mine named Marilyn, who I used to do swing dancing with, 20, 30 years ago. And we reconnected through one of Anne-Marie's events this past New Year's Day rather. But it was the first time we'd seen each other in 15 years or something like that. And so that's been great alone, reconnecting with an old friend. And we got to chat some more, which was really, really good. But it was just a really nice event. I sold 6 books, not bad considering 10 people in the room. I mean, that was really good.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's like heck. You get a batting average like that, they take you right to the majors. I mean,
no kidding.
Yeah. So it was just great, and we were telling stories, we were sharing experiences. We even got into the dark side of LOA, and much to my amazement, we only stayed there about 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, it was good. It was just a good night, and it went for about 2 hours. The only drawback of the entire evening was that Louise had so much stuff going on with the business that she couldn't come. Other than that, It was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty spectacular.
It is. It's very spectacular.
On that.
And I'm pleased to announce that all I took on what I collected on the books was enough to cover my cost of the books. The rest of it went as a donation to the Buttonwood. So it was also a good moneymaker for the Buttonwood. So win-win all the way around.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you that me being like the mega queen planner, and after you and I ended the show yesterday, I asked you just a few questions about, what you expected. And it sounded like not a whole lot had been planned, a lot of discussion, but nothing had been buttoned down. How's that for a metaphor?
Very nice.
And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you didn't do good planning. And now to hear it, what I'm hearing in my own thoughts are, planning isn't always as necessary, Wendy, as you think.
This is true. This is what I've been learning. I've been learning that this year, just letting go. I mean, just doing the book itself for me, the way I went about doing it was completely against the way I normally do stuff because I did very little planning. I just said, let's go, let's do it. And I mean, Joel was like my greatest cheerleader about that because he knew I'm not only a planner, I'm like a get all the details perfect before I do anything kind of a guy. So that was a big departure from my normal pattern. So, I mean, you're not the other one. I get it completely. It's not easy to let go of planning. It just isn't.
Wow, that's so cool.
It is. Cool. It's fun.
Well, my updates are sort of around the lack of planning.
Okay.
It has to, in my mind, it has to do with synchronicity. But as we were talking about planning just now, I thought maybe it really is letting go of my need to control the plans and allowing my forever me, which is now my new name for my inner being,
I like it too.
Letting my forever me take control and guide things from a different perspective where I don't have to be concerned. Like one example was I wanted to take a 10-minute power nap before the show. And so I laid in my recliner and I set my timer and I hit go, I thought. And as far as I knew, it was going to wake me up at about 10 minutes before the show started, which is my normal kind of time to like get myself in gear and call in.
Right.
And when I opened my eyes and looked, I was like, I got 4 minutes till the show starts.
Oops.
That's interesting. And then my cell phone rings. And so I thought, well, maybe that's Walt calling. So I ran to my cell phone and it wasn't. It was a scam, likely scam call. So, and I hadn't answered it. I missed it actually. And so by the time I actually called into you, it was 2 minutes before the call or before the show starts. And then as I dialed in, I misdialed. So I had to do it again. And then by the time I said hello and you and I had a few words, I said, okay, are we at about 10 seconds? You went, no, we're going now. And I'm like, well, isn't that perfect timing?
It is perfect timing.
It is. Now, the old me would have been freaking out going, oh my God, I almost missed it. The new me says, I missed nothing. My forever me is totally on top of it. I got the maximum amount of rest I could have because I really wanted a good power nap and I got beyond the length of time I set. And so there's one example of how just the timing and the synchronicity is always being planned on my behalf. Another situation was last night. I had a client and we were supposed to start at 8:00 my time. And I was still working at my day job and my job was taking longer than I thought. And again, I really wanted to be done by 7 so that I could kind of rest and lay down for about an hour because I'd really been pushing it all day. So I would be refreshed for my 8:00 session. So by the time next time I looked at the clock, I realized it was 7:15 and I still wasn't done. I still had more to do. And then at 7:30, I get a text message from my client saying, such and such is going on, running late. Do you mind if we push it back a half hour? I'm like, oh, actually, that's good.
Yeah.
So I went, yay. Okay. So now it's going to start at 8:30. So I'm like, okay, now I can calm down and finish what I need to do with my job. And by the time I finished, it was 8:00. And so I thought, well, I now have 30 minutes to just kind of go chill. So I laid down, I set my timer, and I set it for 20 minutes so that I would be awake 10 minutes beforehand. And I guess that's my magic thing. I like to be awake 10 minutes before I need to do something. So if I need to go to the bathroom, refresh my drink, jump up and down, get myself awake, I can do it.
Sure, yeah.
So my alarm goes off, and all I could think of is, I really need more time to sleep. I mean, I really do. Well, about around 8:30, I get another text message. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I'm still running late. And I just texted back. I said, just call me when you're ready. And I closed my eyes and I went back to sleep. And probably about 5 minutes till 9, she calls. And I startled myself awake. And I said, oh, let me get to my other phone with my other headset. She goes, oh, no problem. I said, but just start talking. And it was so interesting because like it felt so natural to just kind of go from one thing to the next that I went downstairs while she's talking to me, and she's just kind of starting up the conversation. We're not into anything deep yet because I told her I need to switch phones and do a few things. But I said, go ahead and start. I walked out to the mailbox. I got my mail. I'm filling up my soft drink, And by the time I had all those little ducks in a row, now she was ready to get into the session, which happened to be a fabulous session. But I thought, wow, there's another something where the timing was really quite perfect.
Oh yeah. In fact,
and I'm
when you were telling the story about the about how you were taking a nap before the show today, and you woke up 4 minutes before, I was noticing your inner being, or as you're calling it, your forever you, is giving you signals twice. In other words, they had a backup plan. So they woke you up at 4 minutes before, but just in case that didn't work, they had a cell phone call ready for you just to make sure you woke up.
Well, hadn't thought about that.
That's pretty clever. That's good planning, and you don't have to do the planning. You're forever you did it.
and I'm seeing how I'm having a perception shift that I used to think of everything in terms of planning, and I have to do the planning. And I guess without realizing it, I'm releasing the ultimate responsibility and kind of delegating it to my forever me, going, you plan it, you do it better than me. And I trust. And I'm not late to things. And one of my very strong core beliefs is I'm always on time. I'm never late. I never miss a deadline. I always do things exactly by when it needs to be done. And even when I'm not in control of that anymore, I notice my inner me, my forever me is taking care of it. And it's like, that's quite scrumptious.
Scrumptious. Okay.
It's scrumptious. How's that for a new word?
Yeah, I haven't heard that one in a while.
And speaking of new words, this is just going to go from one thread to the next, I could tell. Speaking of new words, last night when I was working with my client, now what I'm about to say is kind of a normal something, but it still delights and excites me every time it happens. So we're talking, and I happen to use the word titanium. Not a word that is usually used in a coaching session.
Not used in most general conversation, So
No.
I took the titanium out for a walk today. No, it just doesn't work.
But what was so cool is I had told her this story, and then I kind of like wrapped it around in a metaphor, and I just said, it's like you are titanium. That's your level of powerfulness. You are titanium. And earlier in the call, she'd been talking about how she's been working on meditating. And I just said, oh my gosh, I have it. I've got it. Because she said to me, I love the word titanium. And apparently there's a song called Titanium, which she, sent me the YouTube for, which I'd never heard of. Okay. But she said, it's a song that I know and I love. She goes, I'm making that the number one song on my playlist that I'm going to listen to every single morning. Because she was really connecting with being this powerful titanium woman.
Okay.
And so anyway, all of a sudden I went, oh, I got it. I said, you know how like when people meditate, they go, Om, Om. And she goes, yeah. And I said, you've got titanium. You are titanium. And she just busted gut. I busted gut. We finished our session laughing so hard and so loud. And I went, is that fun or what?
Yeah.
Titanium. And she goes, how did you use that word? I mean, it's amazing that you used the word titanium because that means something to me. And I'm like, I wish I could take credit for it, but I just kind of roll with the flow and let spirit speak whatever words are appropriate. And I said, I've never said titanium in a session before. She goes, but that means so much to me. And I'm like, yay. That's what's so fun about just being connected, plugged into source energy, and let whatever comes out come out. So
very nice.
That was fun too. Yeah. Very fun. And now I was supposed to have a session tonight, and I have to tell you, because my session was late last night, I was really pumped. And so it was hard to go to sleep. And so then it was hard to wake up this morning, and I'm kind of feeling like the fatigue, which is why I needed to power nap before the show. And so my tonight client said, blah, 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 blah. Can we reschedule? And I'm thinking, yes, please.
Forever You has your back.
So that's just another something that, like, I have no need to be concerned about the scheduling and how things flow, because my Forever Me, has my back, has the scheduling in control, and like some people like schedulers, like online scheduling software. And I've been kind of toying with that, like, should I, shouldn't I? Would that make me more professional, whatever? But I got to tell you, as of today, I thought, no, the reason I'm not guided toward doing a scheduling system is because I like this on-the-fly changing of schedules. I like it because, you can schedule something out a week, but you don't know what's really happening until that week actually is upon you. And I like to change and adapt as works best for me. And I want my clients to do the same. And I know, because they're my clients, we'll co-create it together. So whenever we change the time will actually be best for both of us.
That's a very cool way to operate. And I have to say, it's probably the second best method of letting the schedule go that I've ever heard of. The best one, I'm afraid you just don't really have a contest against it, because the best one was my wife's alarm cat. She had a cat before we met named Shadow that she had for 16 years. And Shadow had an amazing ability to wake her up at whatever time she said, wake me up at this time, he would. So if she needed to get up at 6:30, she'd say, wake me at 6:30, and he would wake her at 6:30. If she said, no, tomorrow I need to sleep in, so wake me at 7:45, he would wake her at 7:45. He was an alarm cat.
That's nice. Wow.
My only regret is he died 6 months before I met her, so I never got a chance to meet Shadow, but he sounded like a really cool cat.
You didn't get to meet Alarm Cat.
No, never got to meet him. But there was also even a story that goes along with that, because when he died, obviously, she was just heartbroken, and took her a little while to get over it, but a couple months later, one of her coworkers asked her, well, he was obviously very important in your life. Are you going to get another cat? And without even blinking an eye, she said, no, I'm going to get a husband.
Wow. So are you furry and can she pet you?
No comment.
Don't answer that question. Aw.
But, well, 3 months after she uttered that comment, we met.
Wow, well done, Louise.
Yeah, but she is the only person I've ever heard of who had an alarm cat.
Yeah, my alarm, I wouldn't have called mine alarm cat. Mine was the moment I opened my eyes, he meowed.
Yeah, well, we have that with our cats now.
Yeah, but it could have been 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or noon. It didn't matter. And I actually had to teach myself, because I used to love to hit the snooze alarm multiple times. So the first time the clock would go off, I'd open my eyes, I'd look at it, and I'd hit the snooze alarm. Well, he just started meowing, because what that meant was, oh, good, she'll feed me. So eventually, because I like to hit the snooze alarm, maybe even up to an hour back in the day, the only way to get him to be quiet is the alarm could go off, and without opening my eyes, I could move my hand to hit the snooze bar. And then he didn't meow. And so I could continue to sleep through my snoozes if I needed to, just couldn't open my eyes. And as soon as I did, he's like, meow, meow, meow. And I was okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, boy, he trained me.
Yeah, right. Well, the alarm cat was also kind of fun, because you know how with an alarm clock, especially with a modern one, a digital one, you go through setting it, right? And you get little signals, okay, yes, I've confirmed that you've set this time, and yes, I've confirmed this. You know, the clock is basically interacting with you and telling you, okay, you got your time set the way you want it to be. Well, her alarm cat did the same thing. She would say, I want to be awakened at 6:30, and he would go, meow, and he'd jump off the bed and go away until 6:30. And then next day I want to sleep till 7:45, and he'd go meow, and he'd jump off the bed and come back at 7:45 the next day. So he actually had a little bit of feedback mechanism too. And she even tells how he was also I guess you'd call him a warning cat. Like, for instance, if she left the iron on and she was getting ready to go out the door, he'd block her at the door and go, meow, 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 meow. Until she finally figured out that she left the iron on. Or, almost anything like that.
Well, now I'm wondering how much Alarm Cat was being signaled by her inner being.
Oh, I'm sure.
Versus just him handling it all on his own.
Oh, I'm sure there was a connection going on there.
Yeah.
Because he has an inner being too, so, why wouldn't they?
Good point. Well, I mean, but some people might give the entire thing to the cat, and I'm not dismissing that as a possibility. But since we all co-create together, it's like, how many beings are a part of something like that? I mean, actually, even for mine today, how many beings were a part of waking me up when I woke up at 4 minutes till the show? I'm saying it's my forever me, my inner me, maybe inner me. I don't know. I'm playing with new names. Maybe it's my inner me that's signaling me, but maybe it's my grandma. Maybe it's my dad. Maybe it's a whole bunch of loved ones that have passed over. Maybe it's Abraham. Who knows?
So is this along the lines of how many inner beings can fit into a Volkswagen?
Or how many does it take to wake up Wendy?
There you go, yeah. Okay, team. 1, 2, 3.
Whoa, get her eyes open. And I'm like, whoa.
Well, while Wendy is waking up, just want to take a moment to thank our listeners for tuning in and to remind those of you who are not yet subscribers that we would love it if you became a subscriber. It's completely free. All the instructions are right on the homepage at loatoday.net. And when you're a subscriber, most of our listeners are subscribers, by the way. We know that from the numbers that we see. And when you're a subscriber, what basically happens is all the episodes come right to your smartphone. So they're available for you to play whenever you want to play them, whenever it fits your schedule. So, driving to work, driving home, doing work around the house, hanging out at the beach, whatever it is that you like to do, you can just play us wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And that's what most of our listeners like to do. And we know for a fact that they listen to an average of 30 to 45 episodes per listener per month. So clearly people are getting a lot out of subscribing. So that's why if you're a new listener and this is one of your first few episodes to listen to, just take a moment to go to loatoday.net and sign up for a subscription, because we'd like you to be a part of the club.
There are some listeners that are listening to as many shows as you do per month.
I know. Isn't that scary?
That's pretty interesting.
It is, yeah. I mean, literally, our listeners are listening to everything that we put out. I don't know what's going to happen when we start doing 24/7 radio. Maybe they just leave it on all the time?
Yeah.
Why not?
I know my friend Keisha, when she was working in a corporate environment, it was a very small office that she worked in. And I think she did it with earbuds in, but she said she pretty much listened to another show called Inspired Choices Network. Well, it had a different name at the time, but she listened to that like all day long. And then eventually she actually became a radio host for them.
Oh, nice.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe there's someone who's listening to us that, is an expert at law of attraction or is a law of attraction coach and would like to join the network of co-hosts.
Or maybe they're not an expert like me. When I started, I wasn't an expert. I just talked to experts. That's how I got better at it. So maybe it's going to be somebody else who just has the interest in it like I did, a strong interest in wanting to learn and wanting to explore it. That may be also one of the new co-hosts that come along.
And if so, Walt, how could they email you? What's the email address for them to contact you?
Well, I don't have it set up yet so that people can just, take the lead. Right now, I have to run the board each time. Once that ability becomes available, and I'm hoping that comes available sometime in the next few months, it just depends on how long it takes for me to raise the money so that I can hire a programmer to build what needs to be built. But when that happens, you can contact me now. Get on the waiting list, so to speak. My email,
and that's all I was suggesting is just let them put that out there, because if someone puts it out there, then all those technical things will get themselves worked out.
Well, that's part of why I'm saying it. Yeah, I figure if I put it out there, something's going to fix. So by all means, give me an email. My email address, very simply, is walt@loatoday.net. Very easy to remember. So just send me an email and say, hey, keep me in mind as a future co-host. And I'll say, yeah, all right, sounds good. We'll talk.
Cool.
So let's see.
Always looking for the next thing, right?
That's right.
I'm always looking for expansion and what's next. And I know one of the prevailing feelings that I've been experiencing this week is a feeling of anticipation. I have just been feeling like my world is about to expand. New things are on the horizon, because I was getting the word horizon, and I'm feeling this great place of expansion and anticipation. So I know cool things are on their way.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I mean, no matter how you slice it, that sounds good.
Yeah, because a feeling is a manifestation.
Yeah, true.
And so I'm having the manifestation show up right now in the feeling.
Yep.
And it feels really good. It feels scrumptious.
Oh, there we are again. The word of the day is scrumptious. If you found scrumptious on your bingo card, no, forget that.
I want to say that where that comes from for me is from Willy Wonka. He used to have a Scrumdelicious candy bar.
That sounds familiar.
I don't know if you remember that, but Scrumdelicious.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a combination of scrumptious and delicious, and I think it's a great word.
I promise not to ask you how to spell it.
Yeah, don't. That's like asking supercalifragilistic word. We don't go there. We just say it.
Actually, that one I could spell, but that's beside the point.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you're a nutburger.
This is true, but I've known that all my life, so I've come to terms with it. So anyway, we are exploring the law of attraction, the basics of the teachings of Abraham by Esther and Jerry Hicks. We've been doing it for quite some time now. We're in part 4, the art of allowing. And we're up to a section, check me on this because we didn't actually touch base before the show about it, but I think we're on a section that's entitled, There is Not a Shortage of Anything.
Yep,
which I like that title. I like it for a couple of reasons. One is the concepts that they present in this section were one of the concepts that when I first heard it made like a game-changing difference to me. Stuff that I was resisting without realizing became apparent to me. And I got pretty quickly the idea of what it was I was going to have to let go of in order to basically further my own development and get closer to where I wanted to be and attract more of what I wanted to attract. Because I, for the longest time, was a believer in the natural necessity of shortage, or more precisely of scarcity, the economic concept of scarcity. So when I heard what they talk about in this section, it was a game changer. So anyway, that's enough of a setup. Why don't we just read the thing? Do you want to read it or shall I?
Oh, you read it, please.
Okay. So it says, now you have mentioned territorial rights. That was in the previous section we talked about yesterday. We have a rather different view of territory than those of you who are in the physical form because in your physical world, you continue to see limitation. You feel that there is only so much space, which will eventually all be taken up. So you feel that there is not enough. In your attitude of limitedness, I like that word, limitedness, in your feeling of lack rather than abundance, in your notice of not enough space or not enough money or not enough health, you feel a reason to guard. From our perspective, there is not a limitation of anything, but an ever-flowing abundance of all subjects. There is enough of everything for all of you. And so as you come to understand that, then any feeling of limitation, of lack, of a need for protection, or of defending territorial rights will not be an issue. By the law of attraction, we are drawn together. Here, in our non-physical perspective, this, quote, family of Abraham, unquote, is together because we are, in essence, the same. And in our sameness, we are attracted to one another. And so there is not a keeper of the gate. There are not guards to keep the unharmonious out, for they are not drawn to us because we are not giving our attention to them. It is the same in your environment. While you do not see it as clearly as we do, the laws are working as perfectly for you as they are for us. It is that you have so many physical explanations for things, physical explanations that may be right in part, but are not the complete explanation. In other words, as you describe how the water gets into your glass by pointing to the faucet and the knob, we say there is much, much more to the story. And so, as you explain to us that you have aggressors who live upon your earth, who would like to take from you everything that you have, we say to you that they cannot. Unless you invite them through your thought, aggressors will not be part of your experience. That is law in your physical setting or in our non-physical setting. That last bit right there, unless you invite them through your thoughts, aggressors will not be part of your experience. Boy, does it take a while to come to terms with that.
That's a big sentence. That's a really big sentence.
It's a big thought. Yeah, it's a challenging thought. But I have to say, as time has gone on, I'm believing it more and more. And I didn't think I would ever be able to do that, but I do now.
Well, you know, especially when I first moved into this house many years ago, you know, there would be solicitors that would come to my door offering me all sorts of services that people generally need or might need, you know, once they move into a new home. And one of them that I get quite often was somebody coming concerning security, you know, and they'd say, oh, well, you know, we're running a special on our security, blah, blah, blah. You know, can we give you a free, you know, this, that, or the next thing for you to learn all about our security system? And I'd say, no, thank you. And they'd say, do you mind my asking? Well, back in the day, I used to actually tell people things. Now I just say, no, I'd rather not share that information because I don't want to go down that long road of conversation.
Sure.
But back then, you know, I would just say, well, I'm really not interested in having a security system. And you should see the look of shock on their face. Like, why would you not want to have security? And I said, because I am secure. And they'd look at me. And like back then, and again, the new me doesn't do this, but back then I loved to get into a little controversial conversation just for the fun of it.
Oh, I like doing that now. I mean, to heck with that. I still do that.
Yeah, I don't need it anymore. I don't want it anymore. But anyway, back then I was still doing it. And so I'd say, well, you know, this may be what I'm about to say, something that's not in your belief system. But I said, I believe we attract whatever comes into our life based on how we think. And I don't think about feeling unsafe, and I don't think about intruders. I don't think about robbery. And they would just stare at me like I was a lunatic, and they'd say, yeah. And then they would, but do you realize the statistics even in this area? And they'd start throwing out statistics. And I said, I'm not a statistic. I've lived in areas where there's tons of crime, but crime doesn't come to me. And it's like, I would let them go as long as they could handle it, you know, and then eventually I would say, thank you for coming by, but I'm not interested. So it's time for us to bring this conversation to a close. But I had so many people coming by with security system, you know, offers. And for how do I say this? Sometimes I was okay with the conversation with them, but then they'd leave and it would cause me to doubt myself. Like, am I making a grandiose statement that I truly believe? Or is this something that I really believe? Because if it's only something I hope to believe, then I am open prey to predators and to burglars and all sorts of things. And then it would put me into a state of a little bit of fear and panic for maybe 5 seconds. And then I'd say, Wendy, let it go, stop thinking about it, and move on with your day. And then I would, you know, and then the next person would come. And I have to tell you, maybe I've really cleaned up that energy because I haven't had somebody come for burglar alarm in a long, long time. As a matter of fact,
no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
So the other day, someone came to my door, and I didn't recognize the company name, even though he had it probably displayed on his T-shirt. And I said, what is that company? And he said, oh, it's digital doorbells, where you have like a video camera installed so that from your cell phone, no matter where you are, you always know who's knocking at your door. Wouldn't that be something cool? And I said, that's not really something I'm interested in. And he said, why not? I said, well, when I'm home, just like now, I liked coming down the stairs, looking out the peephole, seeing you, and then choosing to open my door. Anyway, you have a peek hole? I said, well, yeah, it's hidden behind a wreath, so you can't see it, but I could see it. I said, it totally works for me. So I said, thank you, but I'm not interested. And then he said, well, okay, I hope you have a great day. I guess I'll go on to the next door and pretend to work.
Okay.
And I thought that was so funny. I'm going to go pretend to work. But he didn't argue with me. We had a totally delightful energy exchange, and it was just fun. It's like we both made each other laugh. And I'm like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So that's what has now replaced the kind of obstinate people who wanted to push a burglar alarm upon me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess I have changed my energy.
That is interesting, though. I mean, I half expected that, that first conversation you described, I half expected him in his flabbergastedness to say, well, don't you watch the news?
Oh, I'm sure they have. I've had so many of these conversations, but I'm like, I'm just not a statistic.
And the reason I even mentioned, well, don't you just watch the news? Of course, anybody who's watching the news regularly has traumatized themselves on this kind of thing, so they're going to be suckers for it.
Yeah, this is very true.
In fact, I'm wondering if there are security companies out there whose ideal demographic is people who are regular news watchers.
Well, I would say they could probably hit 95% of the houses walking down the street, and they'll hit one of those homes. So
they probably
they don't even have to do it. They don't even have to do any research.
What the other amazing thing is how you got so many of them. So many people who are selling security systems coming through door to door. I mean, I've never heard of that.
Really? You don't have
Seriously.
people doing that in your area?
Never.
Huh. That's interesting. Now, I do have leftover from the people who lived here before me. I do have a decal in one of my windows that displays a security system because there was one installed in my house. I've never reactivated it when I moved here.
Right.
It's probably really old technology anyway, but security systems are a big deal in my area. And I mean, not just my area, but like the whole city.
Wow.
And, you can walk every couple houses, you'll see somebody has a security sign displayed in their yard, like up near their window, because that security system is, in their house. And supposedly that sign is supposed to deter burglars, but,
Well, I don't mean to suggest that nobody around here uses security systems. A lot of people have security systems around here. I just don't recall anyone ever seeing anyone going door to door selling it around here. I mean, that mode of selling that kind of service, I mean, maybe people do it. I've just never seen it. So,
well, I mean, I've been in this house for over 11 years, and I have people selling door to door a lot. I mean, like they come selling roofing, they come selling solar panels on your roof. They come for, what I've already talked about, yard service. I guess we're just a good door-to-door sales area. Who knows?
Well, now I've stopped thinking about doing a law of attraction radio show, and now I'm back to having my marketing hat on and ask myself, okay, so is this the effective way to penetrate the market for the security devices? Maybe it is, but I'm having trouble visualizing it, so I don't know.
I don't know. Lot of people I don't know what you have in your area, but in our area, in the whole state of Texas, we're deregulated where electricity is concerned.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, you can get your electricity billed through a myriad of different companies, and sometimes we get them coming through door to door.
You know what actually we get more of where that is concerned? For some reason, the alternate energy generating companies have all organized into kind of like variations of Amway. They're like multi-level marketing situations, and people buy in and they bring in other recruits, and and use that sales model to bring in more and more people to sell their stuff. And it's really funny. I mean, I know somebody who
I did that once.
Did you do that? Okay. I know somebody who was doing one, and I remember him having a conversation with me. He was trying to sell me on going with them. Now, I'm actually kind of a cheapskate. I go on a 6-month plan with any of them, whatever one's got the cheapest one, and then 6 months later I pick the next one that's cheapest because it's always changing.
What I do.
You do the same thing. Okay. Well, that's what I do. Yeah, and he says that people like me drive him nuts. Well, I can understand why, because then I'm not remaining a loyal customer that he can keep getting his residual off of. So I can get that, but and I said that. And he says, yeah, but I mean, why are you wasting your time doing all that? What do you actually save? What do you say, like $15 a month or something like that? I said, yeah, probably. He says, well, is that really worth your time? Is that really worth your time? Well, it takes me like 3 minutes. So I guess if you multiply that out, that means I'm working at about, what, $600 an hour? Yeah, I'll take that. That's okay.
Well, you know what? And it could be way more than $15 a month, because my neighbor, who has the exact same model house as me, now, granted, they have more people living in their house, but they stayed with the premium provider, like the one before the monopoly broke up. And because the husband refuses to change because he has a fear that somehow he'll get inferior service.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's kind of like, the argument about taking a name brand drug versus a generic, when we all know the generic really is the identical thing. You're just paying less for it. But some people don't believe that. Like my mother-in-law did not believe that at all. She would always pay for the name brand because she thought that the generic would give her something inferior. So there are those that have that fear. That's fine.
Well,
but
certainly.
My neighbor's electric bill is 4 times higher than mine.
Is it really? Wow.
They pay about $800 a month. I was paying at that time $200 a month.
Wow.
And now, because I keep going to lower and lower electricity billing providers, I mean, in the summertime, or I should say in the lowest part of the season, when, I'm not using much AC or heat, I've had bills as low as $34. I have a 3,800 square foot house.
Oof.
And the highest it gets is just a little over 200.
Wow, very nice.
But my neighbor is 4 times higher than me.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
So, yeah, anyway, I know we got off on a tangent, but...
Well, we usually do. Actually, I was just going to comment that there are actually 2 main power companies here in Connecticut, and both of them they're pretty much related companies, but both of them, because it's the Northeast, during the winter, it can get really, really expensive per kilowatt hour. If you don't have some sort of a fixed rate plan, you're basically setting yourself up to be ravaged whenever there's a huge spike in oil prices. So most people do go with either a fixed plan or an alternate generator or something like that. But there are still some people, there are a small number, who just stick with their old plan all this time. And I've never really understood that. But nevertheless, both of the utilities are highly profitable. So I know they still have some of their existing customer generation contracts. I don't know. I can't explain it. All I do know is that, virtually every winter where it gets really, really cold, there are scads of articles about people who feel like they're being raped by the electricity providers because their power bills came out to like $2,000 a month or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, did they take the time to actually, sign up for one of these fixed rate plans? No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I do fixed rate, and I usually do it for 2 years at a time. To lock in if I can get a really low rate, I'll lock it in for 2 years.
You'll lock it in for 2? Oh, okay. Yeah, good strategy. It works for me. I go with every 6 months, but that's just because I like to try to lock in the best rate I can get before the winter starts. And then when the springtime rate period comes around, it doesn't matter as much because unlike Texas, the AC is not as important. It's not as vital a thing in order to survive. It certainly gets hot enough that we need AC, but it's just not like Texas. So, yeah, winter is the one that I'm most concerned with. Now, if I have some reason to believe that there's going to be a huge spike in oil prices over the winter and it's May, I'll probably go for a year,
Well, and this really is a law of attraction conversation because everything we do is law of attraction.
True.
And who's not to say that somebody's not thinking, who's listening to our show, about changing providers or wondering what they can do to get their electric bills down, and they'll go, I tuned into LOA today, and of all the subjects, they were talking about electricity providers.
It's funny, though, because that's one of the things we talked about during the book signing meeting last night. I don't remember who said what, but somebody said something and it cued in my mind, well, the law of attraction is always in operation. Doesn't matter what it is we're thinking about, doesn't matter what we're doing, doesn't matter, what we're feeling inside. It's always acting. That's why it's to our benefit to, learn how to be a bit disciplined about it and decide I want to just focus on what I want to focus on. I will take my mind off the stuff I don't want to focus on so that I don't attract that kind of thing into my life. But regardless of whether we do it or not, it's always acting. It's always operating. So everything that comes into our life was in one way or another brought to us by the law of attraction. And even as I said that, I was awed by what I was saying. Not because I'm a great speaker or anything, but just because, wow, that's quite a concept. It really is true, but you say it that way, that baldly, and wow, everything that happens in my life is driven by the law of attraction one way or another. That's really something.
Let's see if I can tie these two thoughts together. So everything's brought in by law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And, I would imagine that there were many places and times in our history when we didn't have science, as technically advanced as we do now,
sure,
where things would happen and people just thought it just happened, but they didn't know why it happened. And so oftentimes people would create a conclusion or come to a conclusion as to why something happened because they had very limited information.
Sure.
Well, I had shared with you about a week ago, I've been watching this series called Drain the Ocean.
Oh, right.
Where our scientists and oceanographers have actually found ways to take apparatus and go deep into the ocean where they can drop it all the way down to the ocean floor and like a lawnmower, go up and down like in rows, like a lawnmower does rows in your yard.
Yep.
And they scan the bottom of the ocean. And all of this data brings back to them the ability to render like three-dimensional mapping,
right,
like a topography of what the ocean floor really looks like, which happens to be not flat in most cases. It's quite mountainous.
Oh, yeah.
They find volcanoes, they find eruptions, they find, all sorts of things. Well, the one I was watching today, I was really fascinated by because they were talking about, I can't remember what body of water, but it was something that happened like back in 1600 BC. And they were showing how, based on what they found and based on the scientific knowledge they have, that certain populations were wiped out due to like tsunamis or earthquakes. And like they were, I know. They were talking about dinosaurs. And I've always had the question, like, I truly believe dinosaurs decided they were done. Like, okay, we had that fun and now we're done living on planet Earth. But yet science has kind of shown that they all of a sudden just disappeared and it all happened at once. Well, they were showing by draining the ocean, not figuratively, but, not literally, but figuratively.
Right.
They were showing all of these like dinosaur type remnants. What do you call them?
Fossils?
Yeah. Literally you saw like dinosaur teeth and mouths and entire parts of bodies just etched in this stone-like thing that's under the sea. But they were talking about giant earthquakes happening and just all this kind of stuff that I'm thinking, okay, so for a long time, man knew that there were dinosaurs, but they were making up all sorts of speculative reasons as to why they're extinct. But now we're at a point in our science evolution that we actually have apparatus that's able to help solve some of the mysteries and say, well, this species came to an end because of this cataclysmic event. And then, there's other things like, entire populations, all of a sudden go extinct. Well, they're finding them under the water, which I find incredibly fascinating. But to me, that's how it all fits in with law of attraction, is that like law of attraction created whatever it created based on what the people of the time were thinking, what their prevailing thoughts and feelings were, and they were okay to be a part of whatever cataclysmic event took place. But here we are many thousands and gazillions of years later wondering why. But without the scientific apparatus to give us any kind of scientific evidence, we are able to make up all sorts of silly stories. Maybe they're not silly, but just all sorts of stories as to what we speculate. Mm-hmm. But, from a true scientific perspective, and I'm now talking completely outside of my arena. I am not a scientist. But from what I would think a true scientific perspective is law of attraction is always perfect in its science. It always knows exactly what it's doing, how it's doing it, how it's matching things up. And we as humans just simply lack the technology sometimes to really find out why. But when we believe in our hearts as to the reason why, I think we're pretty right on the money. And it's like, I really believe that our inner being always knows the truth. But if we're not connected to our inner being, we can't really ask some of the deep questions.
So what do you do with
I don't know. I kind of went all over the place with that, but it just, you use the word awe, and I'm in awe when I see and hear and watch this program, Drain the Ocean, at the things that they're coming up with, that they're going, oh, we now understand what happened to this ship. Like they're talking about World War II and this ship that was sent off on a mission and a sub that was sent off to follow them. And then there were air raids above that were trying to bomb the ships. And, so it's like we speculated to the best of our ability as to how the ships went down. But now they actually have found the remnants of the ships, mm-hmm. and they're able to make different determinations. So like captain of a certain ship.
Well, a strange thing happened. Right in the middle of the broadcast, for some reason, our speaker program, which does the broadcast, disappeared. And we have no idea what happened or why it happened or anything. So, unfortunately, we only get a show that's about 53 minutes instead of 60 minutes, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. And we're going to look into it more to figure out maybe there's an energetic reason why this all happened, but this is the first time it's ever happened. Anyway, we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.